Alright everyone, welcome back to more Witch on the Holy Night. This is it guys, the final confrontation with Aoko and Alice versus Toko finally. And I don't know how it's gonna go, I'm hoping they win, but again, we also know that Toko has Bayo at her side, so this is gonna be a problematic fight to begin with. So, if anything else guys, we're gonna continue on from there and see how it goes. So I hope you all continue to enjoy. Thank you again for all the love and support. Let's do this. Alright everyone, welcome back.
それでどうするの？このまま旧校舎に忍び込む？
まさか私らがやってきたことなんてとっくにバレてるわ。隠れても意味はないし、何より敵のアジトに入ってどうするのよ。盗みが目的じゃないでしょ今回は。
後ろから切りつけるのは強盗というのじゃなくて？
それができれば苦労はないんだけどね。まあ忍者の真似事は私というかアリスの芸風じゃないでしょ。そもそもやる気満々なのはこっちもあっちも同じってこと。
The sound of their footsteps stopped in unison. The old forgotten Misaki High School building stood before them. What used to be the schoolyard was now a barren snowscape. Reclaimed by the forest, the building looked a shell of its former self. The surrounding trees resembled standing mourners at a funeral.
せっかちなお嬢さん方だ。タイムリミットまであと4時間はあるというのに。
Alone in the middle of the white altar was the lone scarred red mage. As she came out from the forest, Aoko lowered herself slightly, scowling at her distant target. Next to her, Alice stood motionless. The bare branches of the trees cast long, thorny shadows. Aoko was reminded of Sleeping Beauty, except this mage wasn't nearly as pleasant as the princess in that. Not to mention, she wasn't sleeping, and there was no prince. Regardless, this princess came out of her schoolhouse castle to greet her challengers.
その体で無理をして。あなたのそういうところ、姉としてどうかと思うわ、青子。
Toko grinned faintly. Aoko fought back the urge to respond. Meanwhile, Alice stood in silence, uninterested in the sibling rivalry. Toko stood about 100 feet away. With their senses sharpened through magecraft and the silence of the forest, they could hear each other perfectly. The golden wolf was nowhere to be seen. Toko faced the two girls alone. Alice's black overcoat and winter hat were typical items of clothing for a mage battle. A few paces in front of her was Aoko, whose combat garb was comparatively out of place, a Misaki High School uniform. She had asked Alice to bring a change of clothes for her, but there must have been some misunderstanding. Though it was trivial miscommunication, Toko seemed to think it had some special meaning.
ところで、始める前に一ついいかな。気になって仕方がないし、この先機会もないだろうから聞くんだけど。あなたの戦闘服ってそれなの？青子。
Toko spoke clearly and, despite the distance, was able to communicate her deep-seated scorn without trouble. Aoko would rather attack than engage in small talk, but she decided to take the bait.
そんなわけないでしょ。今までこういう機会が多かっただけよ。数えるなら今日を含めて4回しかないわ。私はまだ現役だからそれも悪くはないかもしれないけど、いつか流行るでしょこういうのも。
Aoko was sure to emphasize her words. For a split second, Toko's eyes narrowed.
呆れたな。相変わらずのローセンスだ。
それはどうも。人形を実の妹に見立てる異常者にそう言われるなら一周回って安心よ。
With that, the two fell silent and glared at each other. Their bloodlust cut through the thick, cold air like a knife. While the two of them sized each other up, Alice surveyed the area around Toko. There was no indication anyone or anything was lying in wait near her. Perhaps she should see if the werewolf was still in the old school building. Maybe Toko didn't feel like Aoko and Alice were much of a threat in their injured state. Or was she really not expecting a counterattack so early, so the werewolf wasn't ready? After some contemplation, Alice surmised it was the former. She really was going to fight alone. Her arsenal comprised her mystic eyes and rune magecraft. That was more than enough to deal with Aoko and Alice in their current state. Alice, all I need is one shot. Aoko signaled to Alice behind her with the movement of her finger. Alice had no objections. The original plan was for her to keep the werewolf busy. With the mirror as a backup, Aoko was hoping to catch Toko off guard. They had a few other cards up their sleeves, but the fact remained that as mages, their attacks wouldn't affect the werewolf. So they decided to ignore it and focus on taking out Toko. Not the best strategy, but it was all the two of them could come up with. But they had been thrown a curveball. Toko had the upper hand, so she was reluctant to use the beast. Aoko wasn't about to let this opportunity go to waste. By distracting her with her sibling banter, she would settle things before the werewolf even showed up.
じゃあ今度はこっちの番ね。どう？結界の張り直しは進んでる？
まさか昨日の今日よ。まだ手をつけてもいない。せいてはことを仕損じる。だいたい私の目的は霊脈の奥にあるもので、結界そのものじゃない。張り直しは予定にないさ。まあ土地を暴くなんて面倒な真似をするより、お前を暴いた方が早いのかもしれないが。
ふん、やっぱりそれが目的だったのね。ならなおのこと、あんたを魔法使いにするわけにはいかないわ。
Aoko's blue eyes burned brightly with a fiery fighting spirit. Even though her sister was ready to pounce, Toko remained motionless but for her mouth, which twisted into a smirk.
魔法使いか。確かにまだ執着はあるね。私には移植されなかった魔術刻印と青崎の伝える魔法の正体。だがもういいよ。惜しくはあるが、到達すればどちらも自分で用意できる。それとも今ここで私のために魔法の正体を見せてくれるのかい？青子。
Toko's words came out flatly, but her eyes mocked her sister. It was true, however, that if Aoko wanted to defeat Toko, her best chance would be to use this mysterious true magic. The only problem was that she couldn't. If she could, she would have used it to avoid being mauled last night. Aoko Aozaki couldn't use true magic. Toko believed she still needed to fulfill some kind of condition. The protection their grandfather placed on the formula was to prohibit miracles from being easily realized. However, that wasn't because he was concerned about the human world. It was no exaggeration to say he'd feel nothing if magic leveled the entire city. The truth was, true magic never had any conditions. Aoko was being held back by trauma. These 5 privileges, the only powers of their kind, were bound by cognitive seals. That's why Toko looked down on her naive little sister. So weak, a body incapable of handling magic could be cut down with a mere sword. Aoko knew that better than anyone else, which is why she couldn't forgive her sister's ridicule. Just try using true magic, huh? A pathetic taunt. If that was how she wanted to play, then so be it.
ええ、お望みとあらばね。
With a burst of pure rage, Aoko made her move. Her colorless shoes sped across the untainted snowfield, like a stone skipping across the water. As Aoko charged forward, she disappeared. Only her footprints advanced like bullet holes in the snow. Toko held her ground. Concealment was elementary magecraft. More than likely, the power came from one of Alice's trinkets. It was a simple yet effective countermeasure to Mystic Eyes. Toko's Mystic Eyes used the lock property to bind an opponent, It did not have the logo's property to discern truth through an illusion. Once a magecraft workings were revealed, its weakness was exposed.
足癖が悪いのも変わらずか。
In a mere 4 seconds, her opponent had closed 10 yards and was still speeding up. It appeared that she had given up on a mage battle and was going to move in for melee. The other girl, Alice Kuonji, didn't take a single step.
被弾覚悟の特攻。アリスから5符でももらっているのでしょうけど、反省なさい、青子。切り札というものは、あくまで自己の力によるものを言うのよ。
Sneering, Toko raised her left arm, holding it out in front of her threateningly. 10 more yards. Unfortunately, her footprints gave away her position.
そう。
Toko began engraving a rune into the air, but before she could finish, Aoko's footprints stopped. She was still too far away for close combat. What a strange place to end her attack. No, wait. Could she really stop so suddenly at that speed?
飛んだか。
Toko made a snap decision. She quickly raised her outstretched arm toward the sky as if saluting the moon.
添える。
Flames tore through the air. The rune carved into the body above her, bathing it in a pillar of flames. No internal resistance spell could help. Rather than simply burning their target, the runes wrapped them in a wreath of flame. The assailant screamed, falling onto the snow-covered ground. In agony, she extended a burning hand out from the hellish fire, as if begging for mercy. It was the stuff of nightmares. The snow melted as the fire burned the attacker alive. The movement was far too theatrical to be Aoko. Toko had already turned her gaze to Alice. She hadn't been watching the burning corpse at all. Toko knew it wasn't Aoko from the moment the body fell to the ground.
ワインスターの使い魔は何匹いる。
Irritated, Toko glared at Alice. While Aoko had vanished into thin air, she hadn't moved at all. Blue energy traced a circle around where she stood. It was forced to forth, a 4-bar Grand Magecraft mobilizing her magic crest. Toko only had single action runes. No, she hadn't mastered anything above 2 bars to begin with. This torrent of energy was too much to handle.
えい言わず。
The rune formed in the magic circle. Ewas was the rune of withdrawal. Was revoked and Aoko's concealment was undone, allowing Toko to utilize her mystic eyes. Within her open pupil, the infinitely mirrored eyes captured their target in an endless hell. But the mage's sight was literally split in two. The space in front of Aoko distorted, obscuring her form like an icy mist. If Toko's eye was like opposing mirrors, then this was like sticking a one-way mirror at a triangulation point. With her vision split in two, she couldn't lock onto Aoko.
御水の鏡の効果よ、瞳子さん。青子は鏡の Y 字路の奥にいる。一本道から見ているあなたに中心は見渡せない。
Alice explained without concern. Due to the herb Toko made Alice swallow, she was still unable to use her own magecraft. However, she could use ploys already in motion without using magical energy, such as the mansion's mirror and the aimless little blue bird. Finally, the magic bullet was loaded.
セット、ルート、ディレクトカーラット。
Raising her right arm to reveal her luminescent crests, Aqua took aim at her target 100 feet ahead. Magical energy coursed through her gun barrel arm. From the moment she had received Alice's invisibility, Aqua had begun chanting her magecraft. It took Toko a few seconds to notice. Aqua produced more spins in the awakened magic circuits than she had ever done before. She readied not snap nor draw. Instead, she advanced past her third process, a compression of magical energy. Magic blow. If she fired the blue ether that gathered before her, it would fly with the force of 10 tons. Using her magic crest to multiply the energy and machine gun her target, there was enough power to demolish even an old building behind her.
Taka!
Ako stared intensely at her sister, ready to fire. Toko had no time to counterattack or even speed to evade. The fact she didn't even move implied she knew that better than anyone. Acceptance filled her eyes, not fear. Ako didn't hesitate. She squeezed the trigger on her right hand.
ズアプラスターマインカイロ放て
The last word came out like a scream. Under the impact of the ether, the surrounding snow melted and flew around. Toko was engulfed in dirt. No way she could survive Aoko's magic bullet. It contained every bit of Aoko's magical energy she could muster. Viewing the chaos, Aoko confirmed her victory, and yet somehow she felt bitter. But then, choosing to deal with the torrent of magical energy she swallowed up later, Toko tutted at Aoko's childishness. Her disappointment was so deep it bordered on despair.
学ぶにしては遅すぎたが、まあ聞いておけ青子。切り札というものは先に出した方の負けなんだよ。
Her voice cold and aloof, she was completely unscathed. The mage stood in the snowfield, not a single speck of dirt on her overcoat. Just before the bullet reached Toko, she deflected it with a magical energy of the same level. Aoko could only stare at the scene before her. The negation of her magecraft hadn't shocked her, though. Leaf-like objects floated behind her sister. Aoko stared like she was living a nightmare. Countless magic crests poured out from Toko's back. It all happened in an instant. The magic bullet approaching like a tsunami, Toko slightly snapped her fingers, causing a stream of letters to rush out from behind her. Text became art. Golden flowers bloomed. There must have been hundreds. All sorts of magecraft from beyond Western Europe. The kind normally carved up into the flesh of a mage. The kind Toko Aozaki shouldn't possess. The kind only followers of those schools should know. Blossoming magic crests brighter than the moon. Inscribed in the air, they formed a totem pole, a guardian beast to protect Toko.
To, まあこういうわけだ。ベオだけに頼ってはいないことがよくわかったろ。
Toko's expression was steely. Victory was in her grasp, and there was no room to rest on her laurels.
姿を隠したのは鏡の応用か。探知や隔離だけでなく、援護まで行えるとはね。三大のプロイには含まれないものの、汎用性の面で言えば、あれも破格のプロイだな。
持ち上げるじゃない。何？騙された負け惜しみ？
いや、ただの自画自賛だよ。何しろ今のバージョンは私とマインスターの合作だ。趣味に興じすぎてあれこれと機能を足してしまったと今更ながら悔いているところさ。その後、青子に見せかけて私に向かってきたのは例のコマ撮り。それに気を取られている間の大規模な魔術の発動。私の魔眼はアリスが防ぎ、青子は攻撃だけに専念する。組み立ては悪くはない。よくやったと言っておくよ。
Toko recounted the strategy, sharing her impressions as she went. Aoko could not take her eyes off Toko's blooming magic crests. Only Alice was paying close attention to Toko's words.
しかし、それもここまでだ。惜しいな、青子。わずか2年であれだけの魔術を使えるのなら、 あと数年もすれば一流の車種になっていただろうに。
Toko snapped her fingers again. The floating crest began to glow more brightly.
アリス、あれは何？
Aoko whispered to Alice standing next to her as she held her hand. She could not risk turning around. The second she took her eyes off Toko, the fight would be over.
見ての通り魔術刻印よ。信じられないけど。
Alice's voice was filled with shock and discomfort. Aoko shared Alice's sentiment. Magic crests were passed down through a family line and took unique forms. At heart, they were merely personalized inscriptions and technically no different from grimoires. However, the reality was far different. Magecraft had no set form. Without a set shape, the ability to recreate mystics was itself flawed. To craft it into a form required an immeasurable investment of time and devotion. Magic crests were the crystallization of a family's desires and ambitions, and proof of his successor's lineage. Crests had no effects on their own, but they were the ultimate symbol of a family. If no mage was willing to imbue themselves with a crest, or lacked the resolve to merge with it, then the crest's meaning was lost. That was the key difference between a crest and a mere spellbook. Crests could not be shared, and imitating them was pointless. It only stood to reason then, that even if the crest manifesting behind Toko belonged to someone else, only the original owner could benefit from them.
でも確かに私の魔弾はあの刻印からの魔術で弾かれた。あれはもしかすると。
Searching for answers, Aoko squinted her eyes as she glared at Toko. She knew that copying a crest had no purpose. Only the original inheritor could invoke one. There was only one possible conclusion.
そう。肌に刻まず中空に浮かべてるのはそういうこと。
Aoko spat a curse at her sister. Toko nodded, pleased at her enemy's quick wit.
ああ、この体には合わないのでな。私の背後の空間に固定している。本当はね、お前たちのように肉に刻んだ方がいいんだ。魔術の起動が一動作で済むんだから。だが実際に使用するのなら、こうするしかない。起動までの手順は一つ増えるが、何？マイナスばかりでもない。所詮は人事なんでね。痛みは全く感じない。
And it seemed neither physically nor mentally. Aoko knew her sister was inhuman, but she never thought she would go this far.
合うわけないじゃない。他人の魔術刻印を剥がしてるんだから、血筋の称号からして馴染むはずがないわ。で、奪われた連中は死ぬこともできず、今もどこかに生かされているわけだ。刻印の持ち主が死んだら起動すらできないものね、それ。
瞳子さん、あなた。
非難される覚えはないんだが、私はかかる火の粉を払っただけだよ。向こうから戦いを挑んできたんだから、戦利品ぐらいは用意してもらわないと。まあ、中にはつまらない単語を口にしたバカ者もいるが、それはそれだ。むしろ優しいと思うけどね。私を殺しに来た連中をわざわざ生かしてあげてるんだから。
その魔術師たちがちゃんと人間の形をしてることを祈るわ。肉親として。
お前ね、私を何だと思ってるんだ。脳だけ保存とか、面倒だから100人ひとまとめにした肉塊とか、そんな手抜きなんぞするものか。きちんとカフェを用意して、食事も娯楽も睡眠も自由に提供してるんだぞ。中には一生ここで暮らしたいなんて騒ぎ立てるバカもいるぐらいだ。
Toko's words were hardly believable, but it was clear her crests weren't copies. Alice's scowl deepened. What Toko had described had no discernible benefit in her mind. Why had she gone to the trouble of stealing other mages' crests? It would have been more efficient to break down the crest into components and make replicas. For a skilled puppet master like Toko, she could have made a much more powerful puppet with those crests. It would have made a pawn loyal to her every command at that, much more useful than any enslaved mage.
なんでそんなことを。
そういう人なのよ、姉貴は。これで行くと決めたらそれしか目に入らない人なの。家庭より結果の人なの。ある日の話よ。テレビでピザの CM をやっててさ、私たちは唐突にあのデブ食を食べたくなった。でも悲しいかな。一般家庭であるうちにあったのはサラミだけ。うちの実家、山奥にあるの知ってるでしょ。町まで行くのに1時間はかかる。中学1年だった私は我慢できなくて町まで行ったけど、ピザ屋なんか一軒もなくてとぼとぼ帰ったの。
It was the tragedy of living in the countryside. Misaki, which had only recently gotten a conveyor belt sushi restaurant, would not see a pizzeria for another 2 years.
なのに骨折り損で家に帰ったら姉貴のやつ「おかえり」とか手を振ってピザ食べてやがったのよ。おせんべいを下地にしてみたわとか言って、外見たら鳥3羽と牛1頭丸々消えてて、ああこの女には10日交換とか手間とかお金の問題とかそういうの一切頭にないんだって思い知らされたわ。
Alice agreed that was pretty crazy.
そんな無茶なやつだからガンド打ちで目に見える傷跡を出そうなんて平気で考えるのよね。あんなのゲマトリア一節分の栄唱で同じ効果を出せるのに、あくまで呪術にこだわるから空も飛べない人形になるのよ、バカ兄貴。
The thought of the puppet doppelganger made her blood boil. It was clear to Aoko now that Toko had done it on purpose to annoy her. Toko furrowed her eyebrows at Aoko's verbal assault. She had been stoic up until now, but speaking rudely about her prized puppet was crossing the line.
その人形に追い詰められたのはお前だったね。それとゲマトリアはカバラの秘術だ。私はルーン専門だからお前のように広く浅く知識を広める気はないよ。まあもっともこの刻印の所有者の一人からケルトの結界を教わりはしたがね。
Toko looked to the crest over her left shoulder. Its shine was ever radiant, proving that its magecraft was active.
これは城で祖父を封じ込めるのに使っていてね。半人半用のドルイド層を閉じ込めたとまではいかないが、そうだな。私では郵便ポストぐらいの大きさが限界か。ほら、昔お前が壊した赤いポスト。ちょうどあれぐらいの可愛い鳥小屋だよ。人間一人分をしまうには窮屈だろうが、祖父は肉体というより霊体に近い。見ようによってはそっちの方がふさわしいかもしれないね。
Toko stifled a sinister laugh, her explanation chilling. Her cold veneer seemed to slip slightly when it came to her grandfather. Her smile betraying the long-festering hatred she still clung to.
そういったわけでね、先の青子の魔術を防いだので、この刻印もしばらくは使用不能なんだ。今のが本当の魔法だったなら、わずか3行の刻印では打ち消せなかっただろうに。青子、お前は僅差で負けたんだ。恥じることはないよ。じゃあ、そろそろ終わりにしよう。抵抗をするのは自由だが、ベオ相手にそれは辛いぞ。
Toko snapped her fingers one more time. The golden werewolf was hiding in the old school building. The signal to him echoed eerily through the surrounding woods. Before the echo stopped, Akko shouted back at Alice.
行ってアリス!
The order sounded like a reprimand, but Alice silently obeyed. Without hesitation, she left Aoko behind to handle Toko and made for the forest. If defeat was inevitable, it would be pointless for both of them to die. If one of them could survive, there could be a round 3. That was why Aoko decided to be the sacrificial pawn.
トウコ自身の切り札も分かったし、アリスが本調子になれば勝てない相手じゃないものね。
Aoko muttered bitterly to herself as Alice's feet crunched through the snow. Alright guys, I'm gonna have to end the video here for today. Thank you all for watching. I know I'm leaving you all at a cliffhanger, but not to worry, we will come back for more in the next one.